She's still laughing.
That's so funny. Welcome to 5 Lemons Left. We're the real stuff, the lemons making lemonade. So pucker up, because we're going to be discussing our life's lessons and the nitty-gritty details of our spiritual journeys.
Hey y'all, I'm Amanda.
And I'm Drusilla.
I'm Melissa.
Hello, this is Morgan.
And I'm Penny. Welcome to our podcast today.
And I'm Amanda. And today we are talking about trust and trust in relationships, how we rely on each other, how we feel safe and supported, what we believe is in the best interest for ourselves and for those around us. We're talking about where trust comes from and how we live it in our lives. So who would like to kick this discussion off?
How about a question to get us started?
Gosh.
Oh my goodness.
Amanda, throw out a question and throw it to somebody. Anybody except for me.
Oh, Drusilla, you just volunteered. I'm throwing the question to you. Where does trust come from?
Gosh, I think it comes from our upbringing. I mean, it starts when you're a baby, you're a child, right? And you trust that you're taken care of, you're being provided for or not. And that creates a certain level of security and trust in people outside of that foundation. So I think that's where it starts. And it kind of either seems like to me, it either expands or contracts based on how you experience that as a baby or a child, or, you know, through the years. I personally have always been a very trusting person. And I think that's based on, you know, growing up in a home where it felt very safe and everybody, you know, I come from a family of 10. So there's a lot of people to protect you and love on you and make you feel safe. So, yeah, that's where I think it comes from. Yeah. And learning how to navigate the world by establishing boundaries and paying attention to if people are honoring those boundaries or not, and making decisions based on that.
Yeah. Drusilla, you bring up a great point, like the foundations of trust. And I'm sure later on in this conversation, we'll talk about like what spiritual trust means to us. But since we're starting off with trust in relationships, looking at the foundation of trust in our lives, like, isn't that eye-opening?
Well, and it's blind trust, because when we're born, we have no idea if the person we were just born to is really going to take care of us, but we blindly must trust them to take care of us. We just have complete trust in that person without any evidence or support to support that trust.
Yeah.
And so it's given without question, it's just based on faith and a strong belief in the other person's integrity and abilities, I guess, if you really think about it. It's blind trust. And that's the very first trust I think that we experience when we're first born.
It makes me think of the 4 agreements. It talks about, like, when we come into the world in our perfect innocence, we trust that our parents and anyone else who is an authority in our life are pure love and only looking out for our highest and best interest. And we don't have any reason to question anything that they tell us. That this is where the programming starts to happen, because we come in just wholly wide open, purely innocent, and completely trusting. And as we move more into like we mature and grow and move more into our personality, our ego, then we start to recognize where trust is broken, where we have been misguided or misled. And so that's when the trust, that foundation of trust, we start to see like what really shaky ground it was built on from that blind trust that you described, Penny.
Yeah, it really
very
depends.
interesting.
Like
Oh,
Drusilla was saying that she was loved on, she was revered, so trust was easy for you because that's the way you were raised to be
Mhm.
trusting. And you knew that when you cried, somebody picked you up.
Mhm.
You could count on that.
Yeah. As Morgan was just talking, I was thinking about that. I'm thinking, it has to start very early, because you can see when there's even a 1-year-old who cries when any stranger approaches them or something, or that they won't let anyone hold them, or there's things that probably indicate that there's some lack of trust due to a fracture or something that's happened to them even as an infant, you know.
I've been doing a lot of thinking about this kind of thing and safety and trauma and that kind of thing. And I've been meditating on it a lot, just kind of looking for answers. And I was thinking about this morning that I was thinking, why does everyone have trauma? That's like the word that's out there now, and people have trauma.
Mhm.
And I was thinking, I think we all experience a separation, from the person that birthed us, and a separation into this world that is so full of outer stimulation. We don't know what's going on. And then we, and that's traumatic in itself.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's kind of a journey. You go from this trauma of being, I mean, I know a lot of people have gone through trauma. I'm not diminishing it at all, but I think that overall, all humans go through a separation trauma when they're born. And then you're also going through a separation then when your ego's developing, terrible twos and that kind of thing, and the world revolves around you. Even though you're establishing yourself as an ego, it is also very separating. And and then we go into this like journey of building trust and looking for trust and trying to create relationships about trust and with trust. So I haven't really figured out the whole journey of it, but it's somehow, I think, involved and reflected back to our birth of just separating
Yes,
from
definitely.
our mothers.
From your mothers, from the moment that umbilical cord is
Yeah.
clipped, it's like, all of a sudden we're this whole separate entity. But and back to your point that you were making about the traumas and where does it come from and all of that stuff. I had an interesting experience in my Kundalini yoga teacher training this weekend. Some of the exercises you do for 60 seconds, some you do for 90 seconds, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, sometimes 11 minutes. You're doing this one meditation or this one exercise. Sometimes 31 minutes you're doing a meditation. And sometimes the teacher communicates that to you and sometimes they don't. And one of the girls in the class, after we did a 31-minute meditation, expressed like that she had this awareness that there's some trauma there about the not knowing how long I'm going to be here for.
Yeah.
And I was like, it was just a light bulb moment for me. And I was like, yeah, maybe when you were a child, your parents left to go to dinner and you didn't know when they were coming back. And that is a trauma. And that is a small trauma, but it is a real trauma when you're a young person. And like, so I think traumas happen in all these millions of different tiny ways, even from the most well-meaning parents, most loving, supportive, trustworthy parents. You still can have that break in trust and that trauma imprint. So I thought that was really interesting.
Well, Morgan, and just to build on that too, as children, by the time we're 5 or 7 years old, we've already created all of our beliefs. We've already created all of our beliefs about ourselves, life, and others, right? And so at that age, 5 to 7 years old, we're not able to discern. We don't know, really, we don't know anything, basically. And so we make up all these beliefs. So maybe this Kundalini yoga student had made up all this stuff when she was like 3 about being abandoned because mom and dad went to dinner or whatever it is. And so then you carry that into your adulthood until you interrupt the patterns and you really do this deep spiritual work and really determine, what really is this all about? Am I really being abandoned now because nobody's telling me if it's a 5, 10, 20, 30-minute practice? No, I'm really not. So it's all about trust. It really is.
Yeah.
And I when I was doing a lot of my leadership coaching, this
Look
is
at all those
really,
Penny's Post-its.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so Penny's holding up a book right now for those
Yeah.
who are listening to the listening and not watching.
Yeah. So this is one of my really one of the best books that I found, Building Trust, How to Get It, How to Keep It by Hyler Bracey, PhD. And it's what I did a lot of my coaching and leadership training with the people at my company. We went through the whole book, and it's just really a great book if you ever want to take a look at how to build trust, how to get it, and how to keep it. And trust, T stands for transparent, R stands for responsiveness, U stands for use caring, B or trust, S stands for be sincere. And then the last T is be trustworthy. And so that's how they break down the book. Anyway, I had to go grab that book when we started because it just triggered me to go grab that. But it's really important.
Are there any favorite takeaways that you remember from that book? I don't mean to put you on the spot if it was a long time ago that you read it. It's
been a while. I mean, I think one of the biggest things is when you give feedback to somebody else, that's being responsive, that it's the sandwich way. They say, give somebody a compliment. Well, it's a compliment, feedback, compliment. So, and then so people can hear it at that time, and it's not like you're attacking them, but, I think that's the best thing, is that feedback is really important. And a lot of times people feel that they can't give it because it might break down the relationship. But really, I think it's a disservice to the relationship if you don't do it. But, the step 1 is to knock on the door, find out if somebody's open and receptive, if they're home, and then describe the specific action or event or behavior at issue, and then spell out its impact on you, and then specify the likely positive or negative consequences and make the request of what you would like, and then get a firm agreement. And so those are the steps to giving feedback that is responsive and not, negative. I don't know how to
reactive. Maybe.
Yeah, reactive feedback. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I like about what you just said, the trustworthy part. You usually don't think about the flip side of being trustworthy, and when you think about trusting other people, and when you said that, and I had to think about, well, have I been in situations where I had to be on the other side, developing trust and being trustworthy? And this example came to my mind of when I was, it was my first year of consulting with this particular firm. And I was in a position where I would bill them on a weekly basis for the hours I worked, right? And so I sent them an invoice, and it was supposed to be $2,300, right? And I get a call the following week because they would process them a week later. And the director called me into his office, and he said, wow, I didn't know you went up so high on your rates. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, you wrote us an invoice for $23,000. Processed it.
Wow.
They paid me $23,000 for that week. So I go run and check my bank account. And surely enough, I had $23,000 in it. Yes. So I'm
going to start adding an extra zero to all of my invoices.
That's not very trustworthy, Morgan.
I mean, it's a large company, like Fortune, I don't know what they are, 10 or something. They're in that number. And so they, I volunteered to give them that portion back. And he said, no, you just send us an invoice every week until you go from the 2,300 to the 23,000. And I thought, oh my God,
Wow.
that is trust.
Yes.
That's amazing.
That is trust.
And you were trustworthy.
Right. Yeah. So that's what made me think about that, Penny, when I had to think about, okay, on the flip side of that. Yeah. And I very much trusted them as a company. I ended up staying with them for 10 years. So I think I paid that off pretty good. But
It says right here in the book too, trustworthiness means you put your money where your mouth is.
literally. Yeah. So it did. And it made me feel really great that they trusted me to that degree as well,
Absolutely.
Oh gosh, I was thinking, Drusilla, you were going to say, yeah, you raised your rates and they paid you that the rest of the time you were there. Darn.
Well, what about you, Amanda? You have anything to add to the conversation yet?
I'm not sure yet. Like, because trust is a big deal with me, and feeling safe. Like Penny was talking about, I don't know, but it just made me think of safety. Like, I couldn't receive feedback from someone that I didn't feel safe. I mean, I could receive it if someone like decides to give me feedback and I don't feel safe. It's received differently than if it's coming from a person that I trust, that I admire, right? I receive that feedback differently, and trust plays a huge role in it. And as I develop spiritually and become more comfortable with myself and expressing my opinions, trusting myself and my divine guidance plays a huge role in where to go and how I receive feedback, and if I like own it as mine, or like have the discernment to like, this person is giving me feedback and it doesn't land on me, right? Like it's yes, they're expressing their opinion, but like I check in and really know that's not me, right? That's not my issue. And it's different when like in a workplace, when your boss is giving you feedback about something that you're doing or not doing. It's different than someone giving feedback about like, we just got a puppy and someone was giving me feedback about how to raise a puppy. Right. And I'm on my, like, I've had a lot of dogs, and I was just in my mind, I'm like, bless,
Yeah.
And so,
every mother on the planet knows about that.
Yes. So, trust is a big deal.
Yeah.
Trust is a big deal. And trusting, I think my biggest thing, is learning to trust myself, right? Going back from that initial imprinting of trust, my dad left. I've talked about this before, but I will restate it here. My dad left when I was like 3. And so learning that parents leave, right? There's got to be some trust issues in there that I carried forward and show up in different ways.
And safety issues too.
It's safety issues too. Yeah.
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 I think you touch on a good point too, because we talked about the early development of like where trust comes from or where and how it's broken, but also where trust comes from is our own trustworthiness, because the universe is a mirror. So if we are experience a lot of people breaking our trust, then it's an invitation to look within. Where are we untrustworthy in our own lives? And that was a tough one to swallow or to grasp. I think A Course in Miracles teacher, Jennifer Hadley, was the first person that asked me to examine that in one of the classes that I took with her. Like, yeah, where am I being untrustworthy in my own life? And where am I expecting people to let me down? Because that also is creating that experience. So, yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
discuss. I'm just
like
Discuss
that.
amongst yourselves.
Yes, Morgan. I think that's really hard for people to wrap their minds around. Does anyone have a good example of that and what that looks like? It's the same as saying when you often betray yourself, other people, it will appear that other people are also betraying you. Correct?
Well, I think
So
I think it goes back to you're out there searching for, if you're searching for it, if you're looking for someone that's going to not be trustworthy, you'll find that person
Mhm.
and that person will show up. And that person's a reflection of you. And that person is showing you probably the things you have to work on. Like we were talking last week, I said, my husband is a mirror for me sometimes. Like I get mad at him for doing something that really it's a projection. I'm doing it.
Mhm.
So yeah, I really, really feel that way. I feel also that I think we're building our trust, kind of our safety and our security as we grow up. And where it's just this
Mhm.
constant building of putting our safety back together after kind of that separation and that break when we were born and very vulnerable. And so then it's always a little bit of a dance of, can I trust you? Can I trust you? Am I trustworthy? And I think it's a human nature.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
think it's
Yeah.
kind of the story that we're all going through.
Melissa, that's well said. And also like really practicing or working with the mirror, right? Like really stepping back and looking at the world as a mirror. That is some spiritual 2.0, right? That is like holy moly. That's a little bit of the bait and switch spirituality. All of it's all roses and unicorns and rainbows. And then you start, oh my God, the whole world is a reflection of what I see. That's rude.
Yeah.
Rude.
Well,
So rude.
I can give
So
an
rude.
example of that too, because it goes back to,
yes.
like, for me, it goes back to those codependent relationships and my ego story of I'm a victim and other people are the bad guy, but I'm sweet little innocent martyr victim. And so expecting people to break my trust and let me down on some subconscious level, my ego is wanting that and magnetizing it into my experience to affirm that story that I'm the victim here. I'm not the bad guy. So that is what that made me think of. Melissa's share and yours, Amanda.
And if you have, if you're the person who chooses the man who's always cheating on you, it is really more of a reflection of who you're allowing in your life because of your worthiness or whatever, all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And it's again the thing you're magnetizing, you're drawing in the mirror so that you can heal and learn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I have a perpetual calendar from Ask and It Is Given from Esther
Yay.
Hicks.
Abraham Hicks. Love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And February 13th, That's the day we're recording this. I'm going to just kind of break it down, just give you a little snippet from it. It says, and your relationships without exception reflects the preponderance of your thoughts. For while you may not have done it consciously, you have literally thought your relationships into being.
Yeah.
It's true. I believe that. Not everybody's going to believe that, but I do believe that my thoughts become things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it reflects back to our episode that we did on relationships and the purpose of our relationships, which I thought was a great question. Like, whoever asked yourself or someone else, what's the purpose of that relationship? This is why.
Yeah, what the gifts are from it too.
Yes.
Even if it's still ongoing or if it ended, there's still gifts.
Yeah.
And also having the trust in yourself or the trust in your connection to the universe, your trust in God, your trust in the universe, your trust in unconditional love, whatever the words feeling is, developing that internal trust allows the world's mirror to be a little bit more gentle, right? For me, it's when I really started working on that is the ability to just step back a little bit and go, oh, okay, I see that. And then that's the first steps in non-judgment, right? Like letting myself off the hook, like trusting my path enough to let myself off the hook that I created this mess that's in my life right now.
Yeah.
And then turning that corner to turning the corner to now like really loving my life every day. Right. And it takes a long time. And who said it? Morgan, was that you that was talking about the internal dialogue, or was that you, Penny? I don't remember, but it was
Morgan.
The internal dialogue being reflected in the world and like the talking from memory, like that internal dialogue. So, I just a sample, like my husband never takes out the trash. He's not going to ever take out the trash. He's, an idiot because he never takes out the trash, right? Like, I bet when he gets home, he's not going to take out the trash. That is a very simplified version of mind loops and creating that.
Creating your reality. Yes.
Creating instead of one more thing, instead of like trusting, right?
Right.
Myself enough to go, honey, could you take out the trash? Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's so funny. I was just going to add, and A Course in Miracles cautions us against weaponizing these spiritual understandings against ourselves. So like it can be common with the Abraham Hicks Law of Attraction teachings and the A Course in Miracles. I'm responsible for what I see. It can be real easy for the ego to get in there and take charge and start abusing us. Like why have I created this mess for myself? I'm such a spiritual failure. So just to, again, referring to Jennifer Hadley, A Course in Miracles teacher, like 100% responsibility with 0% guilt, shame, or blame. So it's a fine line, fine needle to thread, I guess. But yeah, very important.
I think trusting yourself is an evolution. I think we do spend a lot of time searching for love in all the wrong places, Penny.
Looking for love.
And it always comes back to that.
Yeah.
Totally.
Anytime we can sing, we're doing it.
Yeah, and that we're always looking outside of ourselves for the security. We're trying to reestablish that security, find the security. And so we're always looking outside. And that's when we get our heart broken and we're mirroring these things. But it's an evolution to trusting yourself, because I think it's hard to trust yourself the beginning of your life because you're out searching for it. And so then it's establishing yourself as being someone that can give yourself the security and the love and trust that you're looking for. I think that's the evolution we get to.
Yes, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So that is answering this question that I'm going to pose, but I'm going to pose it anyway. How do we cultivate more trust in ourselves and in our relationships? And I think that you definitely addressed that question, but I'm just putting it out there to the rest of you, Lemonette.
Well, I think Melissa just answered it. I think it all goes back to self-love and reflecting the love of God within yourself, and then it emanates outward. And there's, kind of like what we talked about in the episode about safety and security, and all of that is coming from within and projected outward. So if you have that inner self-love and trusting of yourself, then all else is good, right? Because there's no lack of trust to project outward.
Mm.
Yeah.
And it's baby steps, I think. I mean, it's from, again, the trauma that we all have been through. It just doesn't happen, and you're all of a sudden you turn 50 and you're like, I trust myself. It is baby steps. You trust yourself a little more. You realize that you can have your own paycheck. You realize if somebody's screwing with me or somebody cheated on me, let's say, I choose to leave that situation. Or I choose to work it out with that person. You're just always constantly working towards the next loving choice for yourself. And I think that is building the foundation of trust, so you can trust yourself, so you don't go looking for love in all the wrong places. And then the right things show up as the reflection.
Melissa, that sounds like our next episode, right? Loving yourself enough to leave.
Drop. Mic drop.
Yeah.
Oh, you're so funny, Melissa.
And so wise.
Oh gosh, I have one of those microphones. We should start doing that.
So you guys were coming to an end. So I can't believe this time went so fast. Yeah. Trust is a big thing.
Yeah.
Who would, any final thoughts about their journey with trust?
Well, one thing I just want to also bring up is that if trust is broken, it can be rebuilt.
Yes.
You can rebuild trust. It's a real thing. I mean, you just have to be open. You have to be honest. You have to take responsibility, maybe make some amends, amend your behavior, and maybe get some support, outside support to help you too. And that's why we have these beautiful spiritual counselors here. If you need support on building trust.
And relationship coaches.
Yeah, I mean, we're all willing to help any of you, assist any of you that might be looking for additional support. But I just wanted to put that out there, that trust is broken all the time.
Yes.
And it can be rebuilt if you're willing to rebuild it and willing to take the steps. So we didn't touch on that. So I just wanted to
I think it's a very important point. Yes, Penny. Thank you. And I can testify to that, because my relationship with my husband, we've been together since 2009. And there was a lot of broken trust in the early stages of our relationship, and our relationship has completely transformed. And a lot of that was, I was a different person then. I was very insecure and I had trust issues, and I did my work on myself. And I don't know if that's the entire reason that it shifted, but I know it has played a part. Like, there's no trust issues in our relationship anymore. So it can transform if you are committed and willing to doing your work.
Well, I love the quote, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I also, in Al-Anon, I'm in Al-Anon, and changed attitudes are what aids in recovery from anything. And so I love that you said that, Morgan, that you changed your attitude. You did your work, and always keeping the focus on myself is what's important, because that's the only person I can change is me.
Yes.
And so,
and doing the self-work can cause the behaviors of other people to change. Weirdly,
it has
I
an
don't know
impact.
how or why it does, but it does.
It does.
Yeah, beautiful. So beautiful, everyone. So thank you all for joining us for our 67th episode on trust.
62nd.
I said 62nd, didn't I?
Oh, I thought you said 7th.
Did you say? Oh, I will correct myself. I'll take 100% responsibility for my poor vocabulary
today.
Thank you for joining us for our 62nd episode. That can easily sound like 67.
Yeah.
Yeah. We love and appreciate all of you that join us weekly. I want to give a shout out to my friend Larissa. She's been listening in.
Larissa.
Yeah. And she's been really enjoying joining us. And so I just want to say thank you for listening, Larissa's. Forward to tell your friends and family. We'd love to have more listeners. Anybody else have a shout out to any friends or family that are listening in?
Yeah, my niece Shelby listened on when
Shelby.
we did Facebook Live.
Hey, Shelby.
Mhm.
Thank you.
I have two, Sarah and Colleen. Thank you for
Woo, Sarah,
tuning in.
Colleen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so go ahead. Morgan, did you have somebody too? Okay.
No, not anybody specific that comes to mind,
Carrie.
but hello, everybody.
Yay.
It's so beautiful. You can always send us feedback or comments. We love that. We can episode requests. We're always open to them. And you can reach us on all the podcast platforms. 5lemonslaughing.com is our website. And we just really love and appreciate you all, and know that in our lives, trust is going to come and go. And if we are committed to taking 100% responsibility with 0% guilt and shame, and knowing that the universe is a mirror, so look within to see what level of trust you have for yourself will make all the difference in the world. That is my pennies Post-its.
Nice.
Yes.
So anyway, thanks everybody for joining us, and we love you, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank